Someone asks you for something, a favor, your time, your energy, your presence somewhere you don't want to be. And somewhere inside you, before you've even thought it through, the answer forms. No, you don't want to do this. You don't have the capacity. This isn't right for you. And then you say yes. Not because you changed your mind, not because you thought it through and concluded the request was reasonable, but because the word no arrived in your throat and something else caught it. Something that felt a lot like guilt, like fear, like the specific, deeply uncomfortable sensation that saying no to this person would mean something terrible about you, that it would hurt them in a way that is somehow your fault, that it would make you selfish, unkind, difficult. The real answer to why this happens is far stranger than "you're just a people pleaser." It has to do with something your nervous system learned, possibly very early, about what saying no costs. And for some people, that lesson was taught so quietly, so consistently, that they never even knew they were learning it. Start here. Saying no is a social act, not just a personal preference. It's a signal sent to another person. And like all social signals, your brain evaluates it not just for what it means to you, but for what it might mean to the relationship. For most of human history, relationships weren't optional extras. Your connections to the people around you were your survival, your safety, your access to everything you needed to stay alive. And disrupting those connections, doing something that might upset someone, might push them away, might make them like you less, wasn't just socially uncomfortable, it was in an evolutionary sense dangerous. Your brain built a system to manage this risk. It became acutely sensitive to social approval and social threat. And one of the most reliable social threats in a small, interdependent group is the act of refusal. Saying no to someone who needs something from you can fracture goodwill. It can be interpreted as rejection. In a tight-knit group of 150 people where your reputation follows you everywhere, a reputation for being unhelpful, or cold, or selfish, had real consequences. This is the ancient architecture underneath the modern guilt. But here's where it gets more personal. For many people, the discomfort around saying no isn't just general social anxiety. It's something more specific, something that was shaped in the earliest relationships they ever had. Psychologist John Bowlby, whose work on attachment we've touched on before, found that children learn very early how to stay safe within their primary relationships. For a child whose caregiver responded warmly and consistently to their needs, the world becomes a place where expressing needs and setting limits feels relatively safe. The relationship can hold a no. It can hold a disagreement. It doesn't shatter when the child pushes back. But for a child whose caregiver was unpredictable, or who only offered warmth when the child was compliant, helpful, easy, and agreeable, a very different lesson gets encoded. The lesson that love is conditional, that connection is earned through accommodation, that the way to keep the people you need close is to never ever make them feel refused. That child grows up, the caregiver changes, the relationship changes. But the nervous system doesn't automatically update. It carries the original lesson forward, into friendships, into workplaces, into romantic partnerships, applying the same calculus it learned in that first room. If I say no, I might lose this. This is why saying no can feel to some people not just uncomfortable, but genuinely dangerous. Not at the level of conscious thought, but at the level of the body. The tightening in the chest, the sudden urgency to fix the discomfort, the automatic reach for a softening word, an explanation, an apology. These aren't character flaws. They're the nervous system doing what it was trained to do, protect the connection at almost any cost. Researcher Harriet Lerner, who has spent decades studying the psychology of boundaries and relationships, describes something she calls the disease to please. Not as a clinical condition, but as a pattern. A way of moving through the world that prioritizes harmony and approval so completely that the person's own needs, limits, and voice get gradually, quietly erased. And here's the part that almost never gets said out loud. The erosion is often invisible to the person experiencing it. You don't notice yourself disappearing because you're so focused on the other person, on managing their reaction, on making sure they're okay, that your own interior landscape goes largely unexamined. You just keep saying yes, and yes, and yes. until one day something small happens. Someone asks you for one more thing, and the yes that comes out of your mouth is accompanied by something else, a bone-deep tiredness, a flicker of resentment, a quiet voice underneath that says, "When does someone ask what I need?" That voice isn't selfishness. It's the first honest signal you've allowed yourself to hear in a long time. The science of emotional labor, developed by sociologist Arlie Hochschild, describes the work of managing your own feelings in order to manage the feelings of others. Originally studied in service workers, the concept translates almost perfectly to the chronic yes-sayer. Every yes that isn't really a yes requires emotional labor. It requires suppressing the real response, constructing the acceptable one, and then managing whatever leaks through in the aftermath. The tiredness, the low-grade resentment, the feeling of not quite being real in your own life. Here's the truth that is hardest to hear and perhaps the most important. Saying no is not a withdrawal of love. It is not a punishment. It is not cruelty. It is information. It is you being honest about your capacity, your limits, your experience. It is one of the most fundamental ways a person can be real in a relationship. Relationships that can only survive when you are always available, always accommodating, always in agreement, are not relationships built on who you actually are. They are built on a version of you that is performing. And the cost of that performance, paid out slowly over years, is a kind of quiet self-abandonment that tends to compound invisibly until it becomes impossible to ignore. The people who love you, who truly see you, are not kept close by your inability to say no. They are kept close by your honesty, by your presence, by the fact that when you say yes, you mean it, and they can feel the difference. Someone asks you for something. Somewhere inside you, the real answer forms. Maybe this time you let it through.